We're back. What's up, boys? We know it's been a while. Life can get crazy, but it's all good because we're back. We just want to start talking about the Nuggs. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. They've been sputtering, especially with all the injuries. Jokic's been out. Christian Brown hasn't been reliable. Cameron Johnson, I think we can say the Nets might have, honestly, I mean, playoffs are a different story, but they might have be looking at the trade. They might trade Michael Porter and get something out of it, but they're looking at that trade happy with what they did by the production of Michael Porter. But we kind of want to start out with an overview of this half of the season. I think as a Nuggets fan, you can't really be mad about the outcome. We knew what we were getting ourselves into coming in. It was championship was the plan for this team, and I think it still should be the plan, and it is very attainable. So we're just going to dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you said that super well. I think the Thunder have looked as beatable as anybody the past stretch of the past few months, and I think Nuggets match up really well against the Spurs as it's concerned. I think it's interesting to look at the current state of the standings. If the playoffs were to start tomorrow, Nuggets would be playing Minnesota. They'd be a 3 seed. But it is interesting, like, when you look at those top 6 or 7 teams in the Western Conference, all of them have been fairly consistent past few months. Nuggets are 4-6 in their last 10 games. Just questions surrounding injuries. Can they get healthy? Can they – obviously, I think you said it well. You don't want to peak at the wrong time. You don't want to be playing your best basketball in February. You want to be playing it in ideally April, May, etc., June when the playoffs finals are. So I think for this season, it's been rocky. Yeah, they've committed to some players like Christian Brown. They've committed to Cam Johnson. They've brought in people into the city and kind of secured great contracts for them financially. But I don't know if early on to the season, you're not really seeing an incredible return yet. But I think if you're the GM of the team, it's interesting because you're not overly concerned about that because, again, yeah, you don't want to be peaking in February. So it's just kind of a balance of those considerations right now.
Yeah, and I want to look at since January 27th, there was a game against the Grizzlies that got postponed, and since then they lost to Detroit. They've had losses to Detroit, Oklahoma City, Detroit again, New York, Cavs, Clippers, and then the Warriors. And I think obviously the Warriors was the worst loss. B-Pods decided that he was going to get 15 rebounds, and Al Horford decided that he's going to wind back the clock a decade and shoot lights out of the ball. So that's one of those losses that you kind of just have to chalk up as, yeah, it's a bad loss, but I mean, it's one of those nights we overlooked them. They didn't have Curry. They didn't have a lot of their guys, but
yeah,
it showed us that they're NBA players. They're the best players in the world. They get paid millions of dollars to watch the ball go through the hoop, and they do it at an elite level. So you can't blame them. But I think when you look at some of the losses, you can't hang your head on losses to the Pistons, who are the number 1 team in the East.
Yeah.
But you're also banking on guys that don't have a lot of experience. And I think the Nuggets have proven, especially with their championship, that experience in big games matters. You got guys like Spencer Jones, who is a good player, but is playing huge minutes in huge games. And then Peyton Watson's obviously tested. He's played in big games. But just guys that maybe aren't, not to say ready, but that will need some getting going again. Like Cam Johnson hasn't played in meaningful basketball games. He played in the finals, which was huge, but it's been a while. Christian Brown's been hurt. So it's going to take guys kind of to get acclimated, but Jokic, we've seen him put on his hero cape and do whatever he wants, and I have no doubt that he'll do the same thing.
Completely agree. Walk me through, like, your point of view of the Cam Johnson trade. A few of the thoughts that I have right now are you had MPJ, he had established chemistry with Murray and Jokic for years. They won a championship together. He's playing his best basketball of his career, is clearly as good a shooter as anybody in the league, as comparable, equal to Cam Johnson in pedigree, credibility from beyond the arc. And defensively, I don't know if there's any incremental difference between either one of these players. You've brought him in, you've committed, you've made the trade. Cam Johnson is averaging 11 points, again, through the end of February. But grade that trade.
I mean, right now I'd give it maybe a B, maybe B minus, just because I mean, you look at his last season, he was up to 19 points. And then the season before that, 14, 16, 17. So he's not a 20 per game guy. And that's not what the Nuggets brought him in to do. But he did come in to shoot the 3-point at an elite level, which, it's a small sample size. He's shooting 41%, which is very good. It'll get the job done. But he hasn't been very reliable on the injury side of things. So if you're the Nuggets, you're looking at it obviously on an optimistic side that he will be able to sustain his body for 4 series and be able to get the Nuggets to where they need to do. Jokic to kick him out for a 3 and him to hit reliable threes. But I'd say obviously any Nuggets fan would say that they need to see more. And I think he will. There's no reason to say he's not going to give you more, but 11 points is that's not going to get it done, especially with Christian Brown averaging 5 or 6 that he gives you these days. So it's looking bleak on the bench on the role players.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that. I mean, what do you think, just super high level, what was the thesis of the Cam Johnson trade, and has that thesis proven to be true?
I think Michael Porter is a guy that was a number 1 player in his class coming out of high school. He had that nerve damage in his I think it was his back that went all the way down to his foot, which is a freak out. It was a really bad, and I think he wanted to, Michael Porter obviously was having troubles with the front office, and I think he wanted more of a role that he was that guy, which he's proven that he can be on one of the worst teams in the NBA, but still borderline could have made the argument to be on an all-star team. But I think he just wanted out, and he wanted to have the ball in his hands, which is, justifiably. He's had the ball in his hands his whole career, and then he wins a championship with the Nuggets. That's great. But I think he had his time, and he did what he needed to do in Denver, and he's a fan favorite. Everybody loves MPJ. He can get hotter than anyone in the league. But I think they saw Cam Johnson. They saw he was trade available, and they saw that he was reliable, that he could make threes, and he wasn't ball dominant. He doesn't need the ball to make an impact on the court. So,
no, I agree. And that's why I'm really interested. I've said it a couple of times, but to see what quality of basketball we're playing, and if come the playoffs, we're missing that extra added chemistry and just tenure and experience that Murray, Jokic, and MPJ had built together. But I think the thesis was, I think offensively, Cam Johnson, you could make the argument, is a tad bit more versatile, less of a pure catch and shoot guy, and a little bit more multifaceted, not so one-dimensional as a basketball player. But I also think what's been interesting is seeing the depth that has unfolded in Denver that I didn't feel like that has been there in some years. I feel like we've seen a lot of teams where Murray, Jokic, etc. come the playoffs are going to be playing 45, 46, 47 minutes a game, which is insane. But I think this year it's interesting to me to see Julian Strawther, see Peyton Watson playing some really good basketball, Bruce Brown coming in, Tim Hardaway getting incredible value. I think
Tim Hardaway's been solid. That was great.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about those role players and bench guys that have contributed so far?
I think Valanciunas has been underwhelming. I'm going to say through the start of the season, I think he was really good, but these last couple of games, I've watched a lot of Nuggets recently, and it was to the point where you hold your breath when Jokic would go out last season, because he'd go out with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter, and then that other team would make a push, and then he'd be back, and you'd kind of have to claw his way back into the game. And Valanciunas is a guy that plays no one's ever close to Jokic, but he's a big guy, takes up a lot of space, can pass the ball, but it feels like he can get super close to the rim. He just can't finish the ball in the basket, which is super important. But, those games that Jokic was out, he was fine. He averaged probably 15. That's what you want in a center. But I think Tim Hardaway's been really good. I think he's shot the ball at an amazing level. Every time the Nuggets need a basket from that second group of guys, he always provides it. Bruce Brown's been really good too. Julian Strawther, I think, you're always due for a Julian Strawther game. He had that one game in the series against the Thunder. I honestly like Jalen Pickett when that 76ers game, if you remember that, when Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, I know Hunter Tyson's not on the team anymore, but Spencer Jones, Darren Holmes, like those guys in Philly beat the 76ers, and then Spencer Jones went and posted on his LinkedIn, and it was like this crazy experience for all those young guys. And I think that'll pay dividends when you're in a series against, I don't know, some team like the Lakers or a big moment that you need those guys to step up, and they'll have experience. So I think you got to be happy for the role guys and think that they're providing, but obviously we need a little more from the starters.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another idea here is just Christian Brown. You're in the off season. You hand the guy $25 million a year for the next 5 years. You have your legal department, your financial guy, whatever. You print that in the headquarters, the office of the Denver Nuggets. You print that document and say, we want Christian Brown to sign this. We want him to be locked in here for half a decade. And what did he average? Like 16 points last year. He's down to 10. He was a 40% 3-point shooter. Now he's down to like 26%. And you know what they say? The best ability is availability. And we don't even see this kid play anymore. He just took his bag and it feels like he ran. I don't know if you have any other thoughts about him, but kind of insane.
No, I agree with you. It's honestly pretty crazy I don't know if it usually doesn't happen too bad, but usually we see guys get paid. I think we see this a lot more in baseball, but guys will get paid and then they'll kind of just check off their contract and be like, all right, I'm set for the next 5 years and I don't need to perform at the level, have my contract year. So
it's a real thing.
Tough. It's really tough. He went from 16 down to 10. And like you said, 26% from three is horrible.
Yeah, no, it is completely a real thing in the NBA. It's one of the problems with the leagues right now. These guys are motivated by money. You have just so many teams that aren't competitive. I want to speak purely about the Nuggets, but there's so many teams that aren't competitive, and I think this is relevant to the Nuggets and the landscape of the NBA, that are just simply tanking. And so these guys are in it for the money and nothing else, And this isn't relevant to Christian Brown, but even the thesis for the Wizards and what they did in the offseason, during the trade deadline to bring in Trae Young as of late, to bring in Anthony Davis. Part of the thesis is I'm pretty sure both of those guys are in contract years. And so the Wizards GM, their front office is saying, hey, if we bring these guys in, they've got expiring contracts. They're going to be motivated to be playing their best basketball because there's that. And all of us are inherently motivated by the financials. But when you see a guy like Christian Brown, I don't know, some of his performances in the playoffs, it just feels like he's got some heart and passion for the game. And I understand it's very frustrating to deal with injuries and to be off the floor, but you would, for every single person living in Denver right now, you would love to see a little bit more consistency out of that $25 million a year investment.
And just looking at the stats, or the standings 2 weeks ago, the Nuggets were – they were close to that second seed behind the Spurs, but they've dropped to 4. Yeah. They're 3 games out of play-in. If they have another bad 2 weeks, they could find themselves in the play-in. They'd get out of the play-in pretty easily, but instead of having a series against the Rockets, Lakers, or Timberwolves, you'd have to play the Spurs or the Thunder, which isn't a good matchup. So they got to play their cards all right. I don't think they'll even be close to being in the play-in, honestly. I think they'll get this train back on track because David Adelman is a great coach, and the Nuggets have been here before. So I wouldn't – on the panic meter, I'd say I'm a 4. I don't know what you are, but I'd say I'm around a 4.
No, I agree. I think that's super fair. With the Rockets literally just winning a couple seconds ago, looks like they're down to the 4 seed, so they'd be playing a first-round matchup with LA, which would be super exciting, which I think
they'd get past.
Is favorable. Yeah, I would much rather play LA than play Houston or Minnesota. I don't know about you. I don't see LA and just LeBron with this stage of his career, just what he brings to the table. He has perfected the art of just getting his stats and preserving his legacy. But when you actually watch the dude play basketball right now, In some moments you're like, yeah, I don't know if the
Bleak.
consistency, it's super bleak. Yeah. And that's an organization that's as toxic as any in the NBA right now, where they essentially just, it's so awkward. It's like it's that one guy at the party that everybody's waiting for him to leave, but he's also the GOAT of basketball, so they're not like publicly forcing him out, and you can't really do that because he is the GOAT, but everybody is waiting for the dude to just leave so that they can be themselves and be the best version of themselves, So
Yeah.
kind of
I just to go off topic for a little bit, I think LeBron has 3 options next year. I think he retires. I think he goes back to Cleveland, which if you think about Cleveland, they have a top 5 player in Donovan Mitchell, top 5, top 10, however you want to say it. James Harden, who seems to always be available, always play, and they're competing for a contender. So why would you want to bring in a 43-year-old with a huge documentary team behind you? Every game you're going to have all the lights on you about your farewell tour, or he can stay with the Lakers, which, whatever, and then he can retire, which I sure hope he doesn't because I love LeBron James and I love watching him play, but he has a big decision to make in his contract year. But just looking forward for the Nuggets, I want to get your opinion on this. The next 3 games they play the Celtics, who are really playing better than anyone in the league. Jaylen Brown's an MVP candidate. Oklahoma City, and then Minnesota. So 3 nationally televised games, huge games. What do you think the Nuggets need to do in order to get their feet back and kind of make a statement that they're still here?
Yeah, I think in Boston it starts off with just, I think I read a stat the other day that their average shot distance is like 18 away from the basket, which is insane. And Joe Mazzulla and his strategy is just bombs away. And I think what that means is you really want to get a ton of movement, ton of just excitement, energy around the perimeter, just closing out on guys and just making it really hard for them to get open looks and just contest. And I think doing that and forcing them downhill towards Jokic, towards some of the big rim protectors that the Nuggets have, I think that's a favorable way to approach a game like that. And also, like with Kristaps out, and James Kata is a great basketball player, but Nikola Jokic, I think that's one of those games where you just bang it down low and just
Jokic has got to go for 50, 10, and 10. 100%.
You have to. As far as the Thunder are concerned, honestly, I think Jokic, like, if I'm him, I'm so frustrated that these clowns in the media continue to put. And don't get me wrong, Shea's playing incredible basketball, but they clearly, like, just unanimously put him as just the number 1 MVP candidate. Like, it's nothing. And I'm like, Jokic, what he actually does, what he actually brings to the table. You take Shea off the Thunder, you take Jokic off the Nuggets. I think it's a way bleaker situation in Denver, which is what I feel like at the core of the MVP argument of who actually brings value to their organization. So hopefully he takes that one personally is what I'm saying. And hopefully that one would feel very good. And it would be, I think, really motivating to see before the playoffs hit that we can start to win those regular season games that towards the end of the season start to get fairly competitive, because Denver and the Thunder, these aren't organizations that are holding out for one of the best recruiting classes, maybe the most elite recruiting class we've ever seen come out of college with Darren and AJ and Cam and Kings and Flemings. There's some dogs in that class. And so if you're not committed to any of those young dudes, and maybe the Thunder actually do have one of those higher picks, but Denver doesn't. Denver isn't going to have a shot at any of those. So it's like
Sam Presti's got something cooking always. He's got a stake in a top 10 pick. You already know.
You already know. So this is about just winning basketball games and just being competitive and perfecting your craft before the playoffs hit. So I expect the Nuggets to be going all out. They have Cam playing, they have Murray playing, they have Jokic playing. So I think I'd love to see a 2-1 or 3-0 stretch there, and I think that would really get the boys back on track.
Just to kind of close, I want to hit on 2 things. First off, we're here in Utah, and the Nuggets have 3 games coming up against the Jazz here in Utah, and the tickets are $7. So We would kind of be dumb not to go to that. So we'll definitely try and get down to the Delta Center and watch the pitiful Jazz try and score 80 points against the Nuggets. We'll see if it gets done. And then just to close on a stat, the Nuggets are 10-6 without Nikola Jokic. And I think that's crazy because you thought about when Jokic went out, and I remember the media was saying if they can just be 500, if they can be 7-9 or 6-10 or something like that, then that'll be good. But I think that they showed that they know that their best player is out and they had to do something. But the fact that they went 10-6 and it's this huge thing just kind of proves how good Jokic is. So the Nuggets definitely have their work cut out for them. I'm excited to watch this team keep on growing. Base takeaways: they need more from Cam Johnson. They need more from Christian Brown. And Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are arguably the best 1-2 punch. Jamal Murray's having a generational season. I mean, the dude is putting his name on the map. All-star, maybe third team All-NBA. We'll see. But totally.
I love it. My last point here is just back to the MVP conversation. Number one rebounder in the NBA, number one passer, assist per game in the NBA, number 6 in scoring, but he's behind SGA, who's won by like 2 or 3 points. So literally just a bucket. And a 7% margin from beyond the arc from Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Nikola Jokic on volume is a 42% three-point shooter. Number one rebounder in the league, best passer in the league, 6th best scorer in the league. You cannot tell me if you're an NBA GM, somebody offers you Nikola Jokic to build your franchise around or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that you're going to build around Shai. You just wouldn't. Like,
where do you have Jokic in your all-time?
What?
Where do you have Jokic in your all-time top players? Is he top 20?
10,
top 30?
10 when my mind is in a normal place, but when I'm feeling like this, top 5, bro.
I mean, he's obviously the best center ever, 100%.
I know.
There's no center that's ever played this better. He needs one. I think he needs one more title, couple more first-team All-NBAs. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't care about the accolades, but I know he does care about a title. So one more title, 2 wouldn't hurt, and you can put him up in. If there's a pyramid, I mean, he'd be at least on the second round.
My last thing is, I think looking back in today's NBA, like our kids 20 years from now will be like, there was an era of tanking. It was an era of just people caring about money. It was an era of just stats, like those stats were so empty back then. It's like basketball is hard again, That could be the case. So I think it might boil down to when we reflect on who actually were the elite basketball players of our time, we would argue back, hey, that's when the talent really started to kick off. And the depth of the NBA was never greater than it had ever been in the past. And so with that depth, with that consistency, that deviation of talent throughout the league, it became about hardware and who won the awards and who won the championships. And so I agree with Jokic. Those stats will look really, really great, not discounting anything that he's done even remotely, because it genuinely is incredible, just tangible as a standalone number. But I do think for Denver, it's going to continue to be about hardware. And like I said, you're missing out of the greatest draft class I've ever seen in, I think, our lifetime, genuinely. So
every lottery pick might be could have a chance to be a first option. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Looking at those 10 basketball players that could be drafted in the lottery.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me any single one of them was an all-star. But in years when freaking Zach Riche is the number one pick, man.
Playing in the G League. He could play in the G League and it'd be like, yeah, bro belongs in the G League.
He could be James Nothin or Zeke Nothin, whoever that guy is to go play for Baylor. He's going to be on that Big 12 contract soon.
Anyways, well, it was fun. Go Nuggs. We'll be on here a little bit more as the season ramps up. Let us know what you think.
Playoffs.
Yeah, playoffs is gonna be crazy. Nuggets are coming for that championship, and we'll be with you every step of the way. So appreciate you guys.
Thanks for anybody listening. Guys, see you guys.